Hey guys, Argent here. So I've been feeling a bit depressed about the whole job thing lately. What kind of happened was I had a really potentially good opportunity out west that I was really kind of hopeful about. I thought the interview went really well. I think I did really well in the assignment, but I'm pretty sure I was hired with someone with more experience, which seems to always be the case. That's the thing about entry level jobs. You need 3 to 5 years experience to get the entry level job. I guess if you're wealthier, you can move to somewhere and then work for free for a couple years. I guess you could take out loans to do that. Maybe this is just me being lazy or prideful or entitled. I kind of don't want to go into debt to work for free for a job that makes somebody else money. Maybe that's just yeah. I mean, if it was missionary work or charity work or something, like I get that. That's not the issue. It's not though. It's something in the private sector. So I was looking around at master's programs and etc. And when I was younger, what I really kind of wanted to do was to go to law school. I think I'd be good at law, to be perfectly honest. Actually, I think I'd probably be great at law. I'm very good at kind of debating, logical, verbal skills. So I think I would have liked it. Why didn't I wind up going? Frankly, it's really expensive. I don't think the funding opportunities are that great in Canada, at least for law. Law school is approximately $25,000 a year for 3 years. That's not including all the other shit you have to do. Exam fees, obviously transit. If you're living in another city, that's like an extra 7 grand in fees. And to do law school, I'm pretty sure you have to do either an undergraduate or a couple of years of an undergraduate. So the total cost would probably wind up being $125,000. Even though I had been saving for school since I was very young, since I got basically my first job, um, it's very difficult to have that amount of money available. And even with financial assistance, I would still probably have, I don't know, like $30,000 to $40,000 in loans. And maybe I should have just bitten the bullet and done that, but I was just trying to be responsible, I guess. You hear all the horror stories of people who are saddled with debt for the rest of their lives. Because if you don't get a job right away, um, then you start getting interest on that, and there's a lot of interest on that much money. So that's kind of was my thought process. Also, the market for law degrees is really not great in Canada. The market for a lot of things isn't great in Canada, including, ironically enough, to a large extent, kind of trade and science stuff. It's definitely better, but if they want that, what they'll often do is hire someone with more qualifications from overseas. Oftentimes, the people from overseas will have paid pennies on the dollar to get their degree, and they will accept lower salaries. And people say, well, you should just accept lower salaries. Well, I kind of feel like that's probably true. At the same time, it's just I see it as a betrayal to just bring in people from other countries to take Canadian jobs and to kind of force down the standard of living by forcing wages down when it's basically unnecessary. But anyways, this is from like 3 years ago, but I think it's still pretty relevant just from what I've seen. Why are so many young Canadians why are so many of Canada's young people out of work? Generation Y's sense of entitlement is partially the result of empty career promises. Yeah, I wouldn't call it entitlement is like we expect to be paid for something at some point. I mean, there are a lot of SJWs and shit who took degrees in women's studies. Um, to be fair, my degree was not the most useful, nor do I think it is really the most useless, to be fair. I did mine in political science from a very empirically focused school. It was a lot more kind of focused on research, on evidence, on experiments, that sort of thing. So I don't think my degree was that bad. I also did my postgraduates in something pretty useful, um, like statistics and surveys and research design and communication. I don't know, a bunch of useful stuff. Anyway, some may call them whiny and self-important because they expected to be paid for something at some point. Generation Y's sense of entitlement is partially the result of being pointed down career paths that have led them back to the same opportunities they had when they were teenagers. Why is that? Like, I notice the tone here. Why is that whiny? Why is it self entitled to expect to have a full time job when you're 25 and you've done let's see, if you start school when you're like 3 now in Ontario because of full day kindergarten, by the time you're after 22 years of education, over a quarter of your life, you expect to be allowed to work. But that's entitlement. I don't expect vacation, shopping, or extravagance in my life, said Angie Robbins, a 27-year-old who has a bachelor's degree in nursing. We actually have a nurse shortage in Canada. They keep laying them off, though. Waiting times are absolutely fucking horrendous if you go to a doctor or hospital. If you go to the emergency room, it can take, I don't know, it took me, the only time I went there, it took 12 hours. I went there because I was starting to harm myself and getting suicidal, and I had to wait 12 hours there. So the conclusion I came to, and I said this to them when I was at the hospital, is they're like, well, if you get really bad, just come to Emerge. And I said, even though I want to kill myself and I have no self esteem, I still have too much dignity to come and wait at your shitty emergency room for 12 hours to be told to go home. I basically told them to go fuck themselves. Okay, I want to work, but I seem not to be allowed to. It's true. I mean, I've applied to like 3,500 jobs, including things that I'm overqualified for. The whole thing's just a fucking game. It's uh, the youth Canadian youth unemployment rate for people aged 15 to 24 has been rising steadily for a year, hitting 14.5% in April. These always seem really low to me. Um, I think it's because of the way they count it, and we'll get into that in a second. They don't count people who. I would count people who couldn't get a job and went back to school as being unemployed. If they went back to school because they couldn't find work. As the economy surprised analysts with 54,000 new jobs for young people, but the numbers of youth are still double the overall national jobless rate, and the bulk of May gains were in the general construction industry rather than high skilled jobs. Oh boy, construction. Now people will probably go, well, Argent, there's nothing wrong with working in construction, you're just lazy. Okay, well, let's okay, so maybe they're right. But then what's the purpose of having people go to school for 22 years to do construction work? Like, I don't fucking get it. And 22 years is what it takes to get a BA, roughly. Um, or I guess maybe a bit less, maybe like 20 years. Regardless. Let's see here. For many Canadians under the age of 30, it's a struggle to find a job. But the even greater crisis is the struggle to find work and start building experience in the career they've trained for. Yep, they won't. They don't do training anymore. Training is a thing of the past. I saw one job application that offered training, but they said we only train for exceptional candidates, which probably means a PhD for an entry level job. Let's see here. As a recent cover of Time magazine suggested, this has been interpreted by some as entitlement and laziness on the part of millennials, who feel that they should be handed what more than what they've worked for. Well, how is this fucking what they work for? Um, how is this more than what they work for? I don't expect vacation shopping or extravagance in my life. Expecting to fucking be able to pay for your rent according to these fuckers is a form of entitlement. Well, fuck you. I mean, and the thing is, we won't be around. We won't be able to pay for these assholes' pensions, so they can go fuck themselves. Let's see here. Likewise, a request for personal anecdotes for the story was met with comments claiming the majority of millennials have their faces buried in their cell phones instead of doing their job, and that they are useless mouthpieces whining about poor me. Have you seen what taxes are like? Have you seen what rent's like? Have you seen what like health insurance is like? Because if you're a fucking millennial, you don't get full-time employment. You don't get health benefits. That shit's expensive. You have to have a lot of jobs require you to have a car too. It's a lot of fucking money, especially with taxes being what they are these days. I mean, people don't even expect that much. I mean, if you want to pay your health insurance, your rent, and your car, plus taxes, that's like 70% of your income. Before, it's not about the generation, it's about the age. Founder of Talent Egg, let's see here. It's a bit unreasonable and unproductive. A generation can't be expected to know what being in the workforce is like when they're new to it. In fact, most unemployment these days isn't kids coming to terms with not being a rock star professional hockey player and facing the reality of the world. It's young adults who had practical goals of becoming lawyers, teachers, and medical care workers, who went through extensive training and education to do so, having to settle into low-skilled jobs that can barely cover the bills, and multiple degrees worth of student loan payments. Now, I thank God every day I don't have any student debt. I started saving for school when I was like 8 years old, and my grandparents would give me money. I'd put that in my RESP and just save it. So I had enough money with a bit of help from my parents to pay my way through university and my postgraduate. So I don't have debt, and I have a fair amount of money saved up just from scraping by. Um, uh, but many millennials aren't able to find a way to start the careers they've invested so much to prepare themselves for. Based on data from Statistics Canada, 1 in 4 millennials with a university degree is employed in a full-time job that doesn't require that level of education. Just think about that for a minute. That's massive when you consider that that's like 15% of the millennial population, because about 2/3 have a university degree. So about, what did I say? 15% of the millennial population are basically the equivalent of being functionally unemployed. The number climbs to 1 in 3 when looking at those between 25 and 29. Wow, that's that's crazy. In contrast, it's about 1 in 5 when looking at the entire university educated population of employable age. Okay, so that's about 20%. So if we combine the 20% between the ages of 25 and 29 who are not in a field related to their degree, which probably means they're working full-time minimum wage or some other shitty clerical job. If we combine that with the functional unemployment rate, then it's probably about 40% of millennials that are unemployed or underemployed. Oh, sorry, it's actually higher than that. Okay. So, let's see here. Um, okay. University degree. Okay, so yeah, so about 40% is what I get from this, are unemployed or underemployed. See, okay, I hear they're desperate for workers, Robbins said. Funny, I can't find a summer job as of yet, and I've been applying since December. Matthew Dueck is 19 years old and working 3 part-time jobs to save money before heading to university to get into a medical field. Oh, but I thought you just had to go into STEM and everything would be okay. He's going to school because it's the only path to a job in the field he's interested in, but seeing the trials of his peers is giving him doubts. Yeah. Part of the problem is sheer competition for skilled jobs. In 1990, little more than half of the Canadian under 30 population had completed post-secondary education. By that period, the number is 75.5%. Even though universities are more focused on education than itself than in, okay, which the notion that higher education is the way to a better career and a happier life is one that schools in Canada have fostered, and politicians and your parents and everybody else who matters, but you're entitled for listening to them. Especially, I love when traditionalists do this. How dare you listen to your elders? You should have known they were lying. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the university not being career focused, but those expectations have to be set properly. She added that many universities advertise misleading statistics about the employability and salaries of their graduates. Yeah, I had one, mine told me it was 98%. Well, fuck them. Schools that are focused more on research, the professors that are teaching there, professors who do shitty research. Let's see here. According to a survey by Career Builder North America, 36% of jobs, 36% of employers are now hiring college and university graduates for jobs that used to only require a high school diploma. And 45% of employers who are raising their hiring standards say they're looking for candidates with at least a four-year degree, which means you need a master's. As a result, many graduates are stealing for jobs they haven't traditionally required the training they're looking for. Nearly half of young people in Canada are now employed in retail, food service, or clerical work. So if we add like all this shit together, we're approaching like 60% who aren't working in the fields they're trained for. Let's see here. Or are unemployed. Administrative job at a staffing agency in Windsor, even though she has been accepted to two more postgraduate programs. Well, drama and creative writing is pretty shit tier, but the job, like, I know my job is not ideal, but I think I have enough transferable skills from that of my postgraduates. I do have some computer skills. I did do a postgraduate certificate in computer stuff. Sorry, diploma, postgraduate diploma, computer stuff. So I figure with a bit of training, I probably do most of this shit. I'm a little resentful of my schooling. I feel my program could have more co-op options, anything that offered a little more job market application. Even so, admits there's some truth to the idea of Generation Y having a sense of entitlement. It points out that it's been fostered and reinforced by society. Well, it's not entitlement if people tell you. Published a story showing that the phrase "follow your passion" rarely appeared in any printed material before 1990, suggesting that millennials are the first generation to be raised with the attitude that doing anything less than your dream job is a failure. We're a product of what we taught, she said. We've been told to find our passion and do what we love, and the reason parents told us this was because they wanted their kids to have a better life experiences than the ones they had. Sarah, a 4-year marketing degree with additional communication certificate. For 4 years, she worked with FIFA and South African Broadcasting Corp, leading up to the FIFA World Cup. But since returning to Canada, she's been doing part-time bar and clerical work to pay the rent, which is a lot of qualifications, and those are not exactly useless qualifications. But anyways, that's kind of the environment in Canada at the moment. That's why millennials are pissed off. This is Argent signing out.